Didn't he say scientists are all telling him to do that? Well, no more masks, no more isolation of infected people. Prime Minister Boris Johnson is calling something like Freedom Day Reloaded for England. The Omicron wave is still rolling. But how risky is the way, and could we here in Germany relax similarly? Well, let's hear what epidemiologists say. Next Thursday, the British government will lift all the corona protection measures it had introduced since December 10th in view of the new COVID variant. Because it seems as if the Omicron wave has finally swept across the country. For over 2 weeks, the number of cases on the island has been falling and fewer people are dying with or from COVID in the country's hospitals. A positive trend first seen in London, where the number of people infected with Omicron in the UK first spiked and then fell fairly quickly. As late as December, experts warned of the threat of the new variant overburdening the National Health System NHS. That's why the booster campaign, a government initiative aimed at giving as many people as possible a booster vaccination, was massively promoted across the country. In December, an average of 1 million British adults from Brighton to Edinburgh got a prick every day, whether at a chemist, at a stadium, or from their doctor. At that time, vaccinations were carried out from morning to night on weekends and public holidays, also made possible by the commitment of many volunteers. In addition to the so-called Plan B that was kindly introduced, which includes, for example, a mask requirement. Thanks to the successful booster campaign, the falling number of infected people, and also because the variant turned out to be more harmless than originally feared. It's not harmless, only more harmless than originally feared. The great catastrophe on the island did not happen. The healthcare system was strained, but held up in most cases. It was emphasized in Westminster that easing is therefore proportionate also in order to stimulate the economy again. COVID will not go away, it will stay with us for many years, maybe forever, but we must learn to live with it, Health Minister Sajid Javid said this week. Some suspect that the easing will come right now, as Boris Johnson is under increasing political pressure from at least 15 party members at Downing Street and other ministries during the lockdown. With the abolition of the measures, is said that he's now trying to appease at least some of his party members, and I believe that too. Because conservative backbenchers have long been calling for the restrictions to be lifted. For Brits living in England, that means not only will they no longer have to work from home from next week, the obligatory wearing of face masks, for example, a supermarket and local public transport, will also be abolished, as will be the COVID-19 passport, which they had to show at concerts or theatre visits to prove that they have been vaccinated or tested negative. In addition, it's planned that those infected will no longer have to isolate themselves from March 24th. However, British scientists warn that the easing could come too soon. They fear that the number of infections will increase again quickly if immunity decreases due to the booster vaccinations. They emphasize that it's not just about the number of hospital stays, but also about the risk of a possible illness with long COVID as a result of an infection with Omicron. And I do know what they talk about. Even if Boris Johnson declares the pandemic de facto over with this step, many people have concerns, especially those with health problems feel left out. For example, 32-year-old Pippa Kent from London, who had a lung transplant 5 years ago, she told the British Daily Metro, "The idea that every time I go to the doctor or to the dentist, I'm sitting next to someone who's COVID positive is really bad." By the way, the retailers in Great Britain felt the Omicron wave clearly at the end of the year. From November to December, their sales fell by 3.7%, as the ONS announced on Friday in London. Compared to the same month last year, revenues fell by 0.9%. At first glance, the year as a whole went very well for the British retail. However, the results should be viewed against a background of significant losses in the first corona year 2020. The statisticians put it into perspective. In 21, sales grew by 5.1% compared to 20. This is the strongest growth since 2004. At the end of the year, sales outside of the food trade were quite weak. They fell by 7.1% on a monthly basis. However, sales had also increased significantly earlier in November. According to ONS, retailers reported that the Omicron variant slowed their business. Sales of fuel at the petrol stations also fell significantly in December, which the statisticians justified with a renewed increase in working from home. The market share of e-commerce increased slightly to 26.6% and is still significantly higher than before the pandemic, when it was almost 20%. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.